Welcome to Parks and Cons, companion podcast of the parksandcons.com website and YouTube channel, where we discuss cons, theme parks, collecting, and other fun stuff. It's August 27, 2022. I'm your host, Sean. Parks and Cons, your on-the-spot podcast. We're taking the heart of the action, best conventions and themed entertainment events around. Today we're recording at the Pasadena Convention Center. As you can tell from the intro there, I am flying solo at this time. Carmel has been pulled away to some real-life family things that she's had to be dealing with, and so she is not here with me at the con and right now, so I'm going to be handling this podcast solo. Hopefully that is okay with you, the listener here, but I do have a lot of things to share talking about the con. I mean, it's been a really good trip here. The last Power Morphicon, to set the table a little bit, was in 2018, and that one was at the Anaheim Convention Center, and I believe the one previous to that was 2016 back here at the Pasadena Convention Center. So they took time to go over to Anaheim. It was a bigger show. I felt like it was it felt like this weekend has been just a lot more relaxed and kind of calm. I'm not sure exactly what that's about, but it's kind of felt like the vibe has been a lot easier going all the way around. It felt like things were a little bit more, I don't know if I want to say chaotic. We had a really good time with Power Morphicon in 2018, and honestly, Anaheim Convention Center for us is just more convenient location-wise, although prefer the services and the convention center itself in Pasadena, so that's probably a coin flip for me. But yeah, it seemed like things were a little bit, I don't know, more hectic, I guess. And so this con's been really nice and easygoing. So as I'm recording this, it's pretty late into Saturday. There's only about, I think, another hour or so left on the floor here before things close down. I was here for pretty much all of Friday night, and then, or at least a big chunk of it. I'd say 80% of it. And then today, been here, I think I got in around 12 or 1, about 1, I guess it was. Did stop at San Fernando Valley Comic Con, because that moved over to North Hollywood. Did a quick stop there. We're not doing a podcast on that one this time because there's not a lot to talk about. It's a small, very tiny show. It's good for digging through some comic bins, but there's not a whole lot to say about it beyond that. So posted some thoughts on social media, and that's it. But talking about our main course here, Power Morphicon, it's been great to return now to kind of clarify for those listening, particularly if you're a newer listener, if you haven't listened to our past coverage of this event or things like that, is Power Morphicon fits into the world of our coverage very similar to anime or Doctor Who back in the day, meaning which is something that I did not grow up with. Like, it's celebrating something that was not, I was not watching Power Rangers back in the day. I mean, really, when Power Rangers came to prominence in America, that was kind of more my high school years area. And I was just playing basketball all the time. I wasn't really watching any TV at that time. So I have kind of a big blind spot for, I feel like, more than a decade. I think my high school and college years and beginning career years kind of blended into like a 15-year blind spot of a lot of pop culture in a lot of ways. In terms of the new stuff, I mean, I still love the stuff I got brought up with, but I wasn't really taking in much new stuff. So, again, much like Doctor Who, although Doctor Who, going back a lot further than that and was around back when I started to love things like Star Wars or Star Trek or Marvel, DC, etc., Doctor Who is something like I felt like, okay, the way I'm going to learn about it is fully immersing myself into a convention. And so we went to what is thought by many to be the world's best Doctor Who convention at Gallifrey 1 out in the LAX area there, and that's kind of how I came to learn Doctor Who, and then started watching all the shows and catching up with it over time. And anime the same. I'd never, read a manga or watched a single episode of an anime prior to going to Anime Expo, like one of the world's premier anime cons. So I've always felt like my path to learning these things is first going and seeing what the fans are so excited about. And I love that. I mean, I really, really do love that. I love that there's so much that people are passionate about out there that I can learn. And so as much as I have my things that I grew up with and were passionate about, it's like I want to understand. And so going back to, again, I think it was 2016 was the first time I went to Power Morphicon. And it's like, okay, let's dip our toe into this water and try to see what the people are so excited about and learn from there some. And then since that, I've watched a bunch of the show, not anywhere near, though, complete. Same with Doctor Who. I mean, I've watched all of Doctor Who from, like the 2000 2000s and up, but I haven't watched, back in the 70s or things like that. And so similar with Power Morphicon, or with Power Rangers, I should say, is I've watched, Mighty Morphin and stuff, but I've not gotten into all of these different eras. When you look at the guest list here, it's an impressive guest list, and it also, though, really makes you feel, if you're somebody like me, you're like, whoa, there's so much here. I'm not familiar with Power Rangers Time Force or Wild Force or Ninja Storm. I mean, there's a lot of blind spots for me. But the thing that's always exciting about that as well is it means that, not that there's not already enough content out there, but there's always more content for me to consume and learn. And so it's been fun coming to the show and learning over the years and trying to understand what people are so excited about. And much like those other areas, I feel like, it was only really, I think, the last year or two that going to Anime Expo every year. And we go to Anime Impulse, and also, like, we go to like 5 or 6 anime cons a year. But it was only in the last year or two where it started being like, I felt like a lot of the pieces started to click after many years of like, oh, okay, that's, My Hero Academia, and that's Demon Slayer, and that's, One Punch Man, and the pieces just slowly start to come together. And I know those are some of the biggest name anime, and so it's maybe a little more obvious, but for a learner such as myself, they started to click. And so, the same thing here is, it's felt like it's a slow learning process for me, but I feel like I learn it best in the environment, and it's really exciting to me to be in the environment. And so with that being said, when we talk about the environment, I mean, there's so many guests here from the original, Mighty Morphin. And I mean, we see someone like Carla Perez, famous as Rita Repulsa at a lot of cons, but it's different when she's here surrounded by all of these other, actors that have made the show what it is. I mean, going down the list, I mean, you have Jason David Frank. He was only Saturday only. We saw him over there. Huge lines. Austin St. John, when he came in, it was great. He came in with like his own camera crew behind him. It was like they're filming a documentary as he made his way in. It felt very much like I was watching like a wrestler walk into the ring type of a thing. But just people were so pumped, started chanting his name as he was going by and stuff like that, and got into the area there, and everything was crowded. Walter Jones, of course, we see him a lot more, I feel like, as well. But it's something about being at this location where people are coming from across the world that it's so much more electric. There's just something about it that it's just different than when we see a lot of these same actors at other spots around. So they had a really comprehensive list, it felt like, across those various areas. You had Mystic Force and Operation Overdrive and Jungle Fury and Samurai and Mega Force and Ninja Steel and Beast Morphers and Dino. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And then, I mean, there's even connective tissue to other areas that kind of link but aren't specific to the Power Rangers universe. So, for example, Legend of the White Dragon being, we could say, I guess, a fan film, if we want to call it that, but with some connective tissue definitely to the Power Rangers universe. And even to the extent of there was a booth here for Legend of the White Dragon, and I ended up picking up, they had an exclusive figure for the weekend, and I thought that was, like, super cool that they kind of just on their own, passion project here have put together a figure. It's carded. It looks great to me. Like, it's really in that kind of like reaction Funko, and then Super 7 reaction figure type of a figure. And so I'm like, yep, I think I need to get those. So they had those. It was $25. I picked one up over at that booth, and it was on the 400s over there. They had T-shirts there as well, which was cool. Panels throughout the weekend. I mean, they have 3 different panel rooms, and they've been busy. I actually went to go check in on the Radiant Black or Supermassive or Massive Verse panel. Kyle Higgins was there, the kind of, leader of the pack there when it comes to Radiant Black. It's a comic that has gained a lot of love in the last year or two, and really looks like it's going to go on to have a lot of prominence. I mean, we live in a world where everybody's looking for their own, universes, superhero universes to kind of do something with, in media, whether it's TV seasons or movies or whatever it might be. But it's neat to see what Radiant Black, and so going into the panel, like, I know Radiant Black is something that I've been really interested in, but from the outside, it wasn't something that I picked up in issue 1. But as more and more books have come out, it's like, okay, I'm, more and more interested in this. You're building a universe. I want to know about it. And so going into the panel, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but it was like, I don't know. I don't want to say it was like a Marvel panel at Comic-Con, because that's a whole different level of like energy and all of that. But it felt a little bit just in terms of like the interconnectedness and, bringing this all together. And it was like they announced actually Supermassive 23. So this is their big kind of crossover universe of comics. Or a comic to kind of celebrate their universe over there, is coming in April of next year, and that was like a big deal. And I got video of it, and Kyle Higgins, the writer behind Radiant Black, like retweeted it and was all excited about it. And I guess it was kind of particularly memorable for here because I've not read the Power Rangers comics very much. I read like the Power Rangers versus Justice League. Power Rangers Godzilla, I have the issues, but I've not read them yet. So I haven't read much in the world of Power Rangers, but basically, one of the talents, co-creators from Power Rangers, Shattered Grid, Necessary Evils, and Shift, is going to be a part of this whole thing. It's Danielle De Niculo, I believe is how you say it. I'm sure Kyle Higgins would say it better, but part of that massive verse. And so it was cool that they got that announcement there. They were giving out swag in the form of like variant copies and stuff when people would ask questions at the panel, and it was just like a big celebration. But it was just neat seeing like you've got so much in the Power Rangers universe, and then you've got this kind of extension of it in the massive verse with Kyle Higgins and him using, and they talked quite a bit about how much Power Rangers love they have. All of the creators involved in the Massiverse are huge Power Rangers fans, and that they use it to influence. In fact, they had mentioned that some of the characters, I think it was Rogue Sun was one, that it was like they had thought about trying to bring that character in as a comic character in the Power Rangers comic, and it was like, it didn't happen or whatever, and it got on the back burner, and then it came, and now it's a part of the Massiverse, and so it's something that's going to fit into the the Supermassive issue and everything beyond that. One last thing on that panel that I just found really interesting for the comic fans out there is, and I had not realized this, but the Massiverse, so Radiant Black being the first part of that, each of the individual books, I did not realize that they all take place in different parts of the country and that each is owned by their own individual creators. So I had been under the impression that it was, Kyle Higgins, that he had created Radiant Black and all of it was kind of tied into him. And I guess it all is to some extent, but at the end of the day, it's, all creator-owned books. And so each of those pieces of the Massiverse are owned by the individuals that are part of it. So that I thought was kind of fascinating, actually, and kind of a cool thing. So getting back to the show, as a whole, to give an idea of some of the, other things that were going on. As I said, we had 3 different rooms going on. You had all sorts of different, Business Rangers, the official Power Rangers podcast trivia, Lightning Storm, Toku topics, Power Rangers podcast panel, the Mighty Morphin Alien Ranger, music of Mighty Morphin, Ninja Storm, It's Good to Be a Villain, Dino Charge, Super 7, Let's Get Psycho. A number of different panels going up there. Team Kamen Rider, actually, I should note, kind of in the same vein as Legend of the White Dragon and the Massiverse, is that this is another kind of, section of fandom that comes so close to Power Rangers, and it's not Power Rangers. Kamen Rider is obviously its own thing, but there's such an overlap there that I don't feel like we've been to a Power Morphicon where there weren't several Super Sentai, Kamen Rider cosplayers there as well. Other things, VR troopers being kind of linked in, and they have for all of these as well. People signing. So for VR troopers, they have Kerrigan Mahan, which I believe Kerrigan Mahan also. Goldar, right? Yeah, also Goldar, which Goldar I think is one of my favorite kind of, crazy villains of any genre, not just like Power Rangers, but just that character design just really speaks to me. Again, I didn't grow up with Power Rangers, but coming into it later on in life, it really speaks to me. But also, Masked Rider, Big Bad Beetleborgs Metallics, and then, as I said, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Legend of the White Dragon, all kind of on the periphery of Power Rangers, not the core of Power Rangers, of course. They're all kind of their own separate thing, but they all can be kind of celebrated here as well. Now, the event itself, some logistics about it. It is a 3 to 4 day con, depending on how you're celebrating. I mean, again, like a Gallifrey 1 or an Anime Expo, people are here from all over the world. So for a lot of people, this is their San Diego Comic-Con or, type of an experience there. And so Thursday was badge pickup. They had some limited events to go along with that as well. But really, Friday was the big day. 3 p.m. VIPs could get on the floor. 4 p.m. general admission. The show floor was open till 8 p.m. Then Saturday, the floor opened from 10 to 6, and Sunday, 11 to 5. Again, VIP getting an extra hour on each of those days. With it being at the Pasadena Convention Center, very, it's just a nice atmosphere. As I said earlier, like, Anaheim's so much closer for us, but Pasadena Convention Center is just so much friendlier in terms of convention staff. I feel like it's just, the whole, like, the way they handle security here. Like, I've seen several cops. I'm sure there's lots of plainclothes cops as well, but like there's been very clear that there's security here, but there's not the theatrics of the bag check where really the only thing they're finding is waters. There's just so few bag checks I've been to in the last, I don't know, however many years since they really started, that have been anything more than making sure you don't have a bottle of water or food or whatever it is the convention center is trying to outlaw there. So as bad as security checks can be at parks sometimes, I mean, the convention center has been so much worse. It is interesting though, Jason David Frank, we were at the Phoenix Comic Con when someone had brought a weapon, had brought a gun to Phoenix Comic Con, and there was a threat to Jason David Frank, and never got close. It was all kind of like preview night. If I recall correctly, I don't even think he was maybe at the con quite yet. I could be wrong on that, but it was taken care of in short order. There was nobody hurt or anything like that to our knowledge or anything, but that was the day everything changed with conventions, and so many of them did start to really lock down on security. And so, kind of coming full circle in a way is being here in a convention center that doesn't have the bag checks, but Jason David Frank is here. But I noticed there's a couple cops over there in that area, and just in general, that is the, I don't want to say they're the higher caliber stars here, but where Austin St. John is and where, Frank is at, etc., there's been just a higher presence of kind of the armed, the police over there and things like that. But we've seen them out in the front and everything. So just in general, though, the show has felt, really safe, for lack of a better way to say it, I guess. Of course, this show also, is part of kind of the stable of shows like Robo Toy Fest, Bricks Boutique, Pasadena Comic Con, ToonCon is the next one coming up. That's what I was thinking, which actually is looking really great, and we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, on a future podcast, but they've got a really great guest list coming together there. But these are all Scott Zillner and company put these shows on, and SAC Anime, we've not been to. That one's up north, but just they're constantly running the shows, but it feels like this is kind of like the big show for them. Like this is, a big 3-day beefy show that, it's not the same attendance level as something like a WonderCon, but it definitely feels like it's much more in that vein where it's a big show, and a lot of people are coming to it, and again, people are coming from all over the world, where something like Robo Toy Fest, people are coming from, SoCal only, I think, generally speaking. It's not the type of show that's going to bring people from across the country to it or anything like that. But on the topic of cosplay, did want to say, fantastic cosplay, like incredible cosplay. We're going to put together a cosplay video that we'll have up on the channel, but it has been awesome. They've got a couple set pieces up, which they've got the kind of command center there where I love back at in Anaheim when they had that set up. They were doing, it was kind of reminding me of the old Star Trek 60s where like they were pretending the Rangers there, at least when I was taking video and stuff, it was as if they had just been, hit by, some laser beams or whatever, and were kind of all shaking in their seats and rocking back and forth and stuff. But I got some cool video of them coming together over there and under attack and things like that. They've got some different backdrops and just in general, seeing a lot of cosplay. There was a decent number on Friday, but Saturday's been like a whole nother level. I feel like it's like, I don't know, maybe 10 times as much. You can't really walk 10 feet without seeing somebody suited up in some cool cosplay. It was funny, actually, as I was getting ready to start the podcast, actually, Michael Myers even came by. Not a Morphicon version of Michael Myers, but just a Michael Myers. And so I never knew the Shape was a fan of Power Rangers, but seemingly he is, and he's here, and he's celebrating the con with the rest of us here. Some cool exclusives, I should say. They got their official Morphicon booth, as they have in the past, and they've got different exclusives. Just in general, for those with the various VIP levels and things like that, there's items that come as part of that, of course. But in that exclusives area over there, there's been some, exciting kind of fun things that have been mixed in there. I mean, of course, the convention shirts, which I love. I've got my 2018 that I still wear to this day, not wherever I go, but, periodically. They did have a couple Super 7 figures on hand here as well, which are cool and definitely have been a popular item from what I've seen. As I said, the Legend figure that I picked up really grabbed me, the Legend of the White Dragon, just because it felt, I don't want to say it felt like a bootleg, but it kind of celebrates that section of fandom to me where it's like fans coming together to create their own thing. And I love that in Star Wars and Marvel and DC and wherever, like when people come together and kind of create their own, branches of the fandoms and stuff. So I thought that was neat, seeing them here and just, being able to pick a figure up for $25. That's not an easy thing to do. One other on the cosplay side, I just wanted to note, and actually it's walking by right now, the Blue Ranger TMNT style. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle goes Power Ranger mashup. Pretty awesome. Fantastic. We got that included in our video as well. There's a great Zed as well. I mean, the list goes on and on in terms of some of the fantastic cosplayers. The Kamen Rider team, which we've seen them and picked up video on them a few times, I believe. Most of that team that's here as a group, doing a big group cosplay, but got them on the video as well. So some really, really good, talented individuals there. Now, the floor I want to talk about, it's a little bit of a interesting divide. So the floor itself, it feels to me, 20 to 30% smaller than it was in Anaheim, and that could be incorrect. I meant to do like a booth-to-booth comparison or a guest comparison and kind of count it up and figure out kind of where it was all at, but I did not do that. I'm sure that's easy enough to do. If anybody, listening wasn't at the show and wants to check it out, you can Google it and see the map there. But basically the way the show is divided up is they are using, Hall A and B, I believe it is here at the Pasadena Convention Center. So it's the left side of the convention center, like if you're standing at the front. And so on the far left, as you enter the floor from the lobby, I mean, they're doing all the registration in the lobby. And I should say, one of the things I thought that was really cool is with their registration process, they were, as they were lining people up to get in, rather than having them line up outside, like is the common thing to do. I mean, Monsterpalooza did it, pretty much every convention we've seen here usually does it, and here they were able to kind of snake the people around inside, so people were in the air conditioning, which if you're not in California, it's been really hot, and unfortunately it's going to get even hotter. Like next week I was looking at our Disneyland Halloween kicks off Friday, and I think it's supposed to be 106, so it's crazy hot out here. But anyway, they're able to get people inside, and I thought that was really good. That does a lot to, I think, lift spirits when you're waiting in line in air conditioning rather than out in the hot or anything like that. But in terms of the floor itself, then, if you go to the far left, you've got kind of a cosplay corner, a few cosplay booths, and some of those sets that I talked about earlier. Nerd Mafia's over there as well, in that fan division. You've got some art, a couple art displays mixed in. You've got the official Power Morphicon store at the front of the hall there with all of their exclusives, and they've got a number of things beyond just the usual exclusives. They've got some of their pins from other shows and things like that that they're selling. They've got a good wide range of items that are available there, and definitely some fun eye candy for sure. Now, the booth though in between kind of hits at what I would say maybe 25% of the show is, which is just all sorts of awesome modern to vintage toys. And I feel like most of the toy booths here kind of are hitting that modern to vintage. And a lot of the vintage, I mean, it's not going back. I'm not seeing Shogun, warriors or, the old Godzilla figures. So not like that level, although there are some booths here with a lot of Godzilla representation. But I'm not seeing a lot of toys in that way, but more vintage, meaning, and it pains me to say, but more of the 90s type of stuff, And so being somebody that was in high school in the 90s, it pains me to say that that's, vintage. But I realize as we get further and further out, it's oh yeah, we're getting to that 30-year area there. So that is good enough. We were calling Kenner Star Wars vintage when we were only like 10, 15 years out from it. So yeah, I guess we can call that vintage now. And so a lot of booths with just incredible like bins filled with figures. The one I was doing, and I did 2 live videos that you may want to check out on our channel that were just, one was kind of Friday night, what's going on the floor, and the other was Saturday, giving a feel for just some of the, what the floor had to offer. And I was just kind of showing off some of the toys in the bins. It's just, kind of remarkable stuff because you've got like $5 figures mixed in with $120 figures and things like that, but a really good range of types of items there. And so you've got, again, I don't know, 20-25% booths that are kind of in that realm, which are going to be great for the collectors to find your Zords and all sorts of other fun things there. I mean, got a few Funko Pops mixed in too, but on that note, you don't have any booths here that are like just Funko Pops, which is kind of nice just because you've got a mix of things and it's not just, somebody selling, I don't know, Disney Funko Pops. So everything seems to kind of tie in. Not to say you can't find, some Disney or Star Wars or other things, but I just feel like there's a little bit stronger of a tie to kind of the base thing. So for example, I think Transformers is a closer leap. It's not as close to something like Kamen Rider, maybe, but it just kind of ties in thematically just a little bit better than, let's say, I don't know, Rick and Morty or something like that. So you don't have a lot of the things that are just kind of off left field. I feel like most things here tie either they are just specifically Power Rangers merchandise or they tie fairly closely thematically with that. Now, in addition to kind of those vintage booths and some of the artists and things like that, you've got, t-shirt, more like original design t-shirts and things like that, and kind of a more Etsy or Artist Alley type feel to it. But then you also have some of the space taken up with some of the bigger booths. So you don't have Hasbro here. Hasbro had a pretty great display back in 2018, and I wonder actually if having Hasbro there was part of what kind of just made it feel a little more chaotic, if that's the term. I mean, I loved their booth. They had some great costumes on display, but maybe it's nice not having them here. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know exactly what to attribute it to, but it just feels like it's kind of more of an easygoing weekend, and not that people didn't have a great time in 2018, but I felt like there was more stress about different exclusives and things like that. But anyway, in terms of the more, I don't want to call them big box, but those broader booths, you do have Super 7 here. They're right at the front. And they've got all their reaction figures there. It's great t-shirts and pins and things like that. Then also over there you have Renegade with their role-playing, their deck builder games and stuff. So they've got, advertisements up for G.I. Joe and My Little Pony and stuff. But everything specifically at their booth, I believe, is just like the hands-on gaming is all Power Rangers related. So you've got, a way to go take a break, have a seat, and involve yourself in a game there. Nacelle is here. I think it's well documented how much I like Nacelle, the toys that made us, and behind the attractions, and the movies that made us. They've done so much stuff, and they've started to branch off into some of their own toy production, and they've started to make their rounds at some of the conventions. So they're here. They've got that fantastic knockoffs book that Brian Heiler did from Pod Stallions. They're selling it there. They've got their Evel Knievel figure. Just some cool stuff there. And then you've got, well, we talked about the Legend of the White Dragon. I would say really then we can kind of transition. Then you have all the signing, and you've got, what is it? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe it's about 7 or 8 rows of just the autograph area. And I mean, again, it's mostly very focused. It's kind of interesting because I feel like there aren't a lot of people at the con that are advertising signing for other things. I mean, you do have some. You have, what's his first name? Last name, I believe it's Thompson. He's one of the Ewoks from Return of the Jedi, and we see him periodically at cons. And I'll say mostly what he has out are images from Star Wars and him signing as an Ewok, but that is like really kind of the exception. Most everybody there really seems like they're there advertising, and not just advertising, but like what they're signing is specific to Power Rangers. You have a Brennan Mejia, and it's just like everything there is Power Rangers. Every single, item on the table. I think Sabrina Liu in a similar vein. So just a lot of signing very specific to the world of Power Rangers and making sure that people are able to kind of pick what they want there. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of, rule that like, hey, you can't sell anything if it's not Power Rangers. I mean, it's not, to look ahead, it's not D23 Expo where it's, you can't have anything but Disney items. You're not going to see a Batman anywhere showing up at D23 Expo. But it does feel like everybody here, again, like everybody gets the thesis statement. This is celebrating a love of Power Rangers, and then tangentially there are some links there that people that are into Power Rangers also, have some loves that go into, VR and things like that. And so it all kind of maintains that thesis throughout the signing area. And man, that area has been packed. I mean, it has been absolutely packed with people signing. I've seen so many people getting helmets signed, like getting every Red Ranger they can to sign a helmet and things like that. Just some really cool kind of jam pieces in the form of like the Power Rangers world, not, sketches as it is in the other areas. You do have, like I said, over there, Kyle Higgins is there with Radiant Black and stuff. And there's a few others that, again, they're tangential to Power Rangers. But for the most part, everything over there really ties in really nicely. So it's not, it's not just who is available this weekend. There's very few people in there that don't seem to have a very direct link to the Power Rangers universe, and I think the fans really appreciate that and are excited. They also seem to rotate the signers, so like someone like Austin St. John was only signing Thursday and Friday, and then someone like Jason David Frank only doing Saturday. So I don't know how much of that is the talent schedule versus Power Morphicon organizing it, but it does seem to work pretty well, because that far right corner on the other end of the convention center that is really where a lot of the kind of OG Rangers are, if we want to call them that, and some of the OG, Kamen Rider and stuff like that, that area is pretty dense in terms of lines. Like, it's really packed with people signing, and I don't think you could really have Jason David Frank and Austin St. John like signing at the same time. Like, it's just too many people, so they'd have to kind of open up a whole nother signing area there. I should say also they have their photo op area, which seems to have been pretty busy. They have a company they're working with, I believe it's called Pose. And I'm not familiar with them. I'm not a photo op person just in general, but I was really impressed because I took a break on Friday over there, and I was doing some stuff on my phone, social media, whatever, and they just seemed like on it, the way they were facilitating things and their customer service. Like, they had several employees out, like, talking to people to answer questions about, like, when they were going to be up. They had some really clean signage about, like, what, the procedures were about putting your backpack to the side, like, not asking for an autograph in there. Like, it just seemed like a really cool company. So I'm not sure if this is, maybe everybody listening to this is, like, very familiar with them, and I'm the only one that's not heard of them. But it felt like a really good company. So I don't know. Like I said, I've never been a photo op person. I've gotten I think one, like, where I've like paid, and that I didn't even pay. We like inherited it. And it was Stan Lee back at an amazing Comic-Con, and someone just kind of gave it to us back in the day, if I recall correctly how that worked. That may have actually been our very first podcast episode, so I could go back to listen to episode 1 to remember how that worked out. But that's the only time I remember like kind of standing in the line and taking a photo. But anyway, it seems like a good company in there. And then there is a kids play area out there as well. They've got kind of some props on display in the lobby area, so a lot of things to do there all the way around. I mean, in the end, I feel like this year this Power Morphicon reminds me more of what Gallifrey 1 is usually, which Gallifrey 1 usually just feels like everyone here is a hardcore fan and they're all pushed together and it's awesome and everybody loves the same thing. And I don't know if it felt that way in Anaheim or not. I don't know if the convention center was just a little bit too big for the love. I don't know. I've never been a fan of saying, well, you should have a smaller convention center or anything, but there's just something that feels just a tad more special this year. I don't know what it is, but it feels good. I guess it could be the 4 years off too. I guess that should be, noted. Obviously, it's been a long time since these fans have come together, so maybe it's as simple as that. As the pandemic kind of wind down, or whatever stage we want to say we're in, it's been interesting because Carmel and I keep, going to things where people are coming back for the first time, like their first, Comic-Con, their first Star Wars Celebration, their first Anime Expo, and here first Power Morphicon. But we've seen so many firsts now over the last year and a half that it's hard to remember some of these. That's like, oh, this could be the first big event for a lot of people here, and that does make it extra special. But at the end of the day, it's always going to be extra special when it's something that you love the most. And so, although Power Rangers is not something I grew up with and isn't my number one fandom, it's something I'm excited to learn more about, and I feel like I've definitely been getting educated here by the fans and the artists and the talent that's been here this weekend as I'm kind of taking in more of the information, and hopefully we'll continue to do so as we build up to what I would imagine the show returning now in 24. Hopefully we'd be back on schedule. What it seems to do generally here is, something like Star Wars Celebration. It's an every other year celebration, and so in the off years is Japan World Heroes. I think that's kind of the normal rhythm. Obviously, the pandemic shook everything up, and they did kind of a virtual version of it and things like that in this, dealing with the last couple years. But I believe now we'll see Power Morphicon return. I would imagine back to Pasadena. Things seem to be going well. I would imagine they'll come back here, and I would imagine that's going to be in 2024. So I know we will eagerly watch to see what happens and be excited to find that out. So with that being said, I'm going to start to wind things up here. Again, apologies for not having Carmel here. Hopefully what I had to share was still of interest. Again, very appreciative to all the first off, Power Morphicon staff for having us out as press, and then just all the people with all the love of Power Rangers to kind of let people like me that are kind of learning come in and not feel, like outsiders, but like embraced and like to be educated. And so I really do appreciate that about so many fandoms, but definitely this weekend I felt the love here at Power Morphicon with all these great Power Rangers fans. So for us coming up, though, before we get to Power Morphicon 2024, there will be a lot of other conventions and events. Next up on our calendar, we will have Disneyland Halloween coming up. The September 2nd, Anime Impulse and Long Beach Comic Con are also that same weekend, the 3rd and the 4th. Oogie Boogie Bash at the Disneyland Resort, that is September 6th. Halloween Horror Nights returns to Universal Studios Hollywood. The opening night is September 8th. The D23 Expo, September 9th through the 11th. Six Flags Fright Fest, September 10th. And then Knott's Scary Farm is opening up on September 22nd. Once again, we want to thank our Parks and Cons crew. If you support us over there on Patreon, we greatly appreciate all of that support. We hope you enjoy the bonus content, and I hope you're getting excited for the bonus hops. We do that 3 times a year where we have kind of bonus prizes, bonus content, etc. And that's going to be starting up here in just a few weeks as we get ready for the Halloween season. If you've not done so already, we'd also appreciate if you would leave us a review wherever it is you find the podcast. Those reviews really help people to find us. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Listen Notes, Pocket Cast, Spotify, SoundCloud, TuneIn, wherever else you find it. We do appreciate that support greatly. And also remember, you can always follow us on social media. You can find us at Parks and Cons on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube. As I said, we do have another video or 2 coming up for Power Morphicon. I'm not sure if they'll be up before or after this podcast hits the air, but keep an eye on our YouTube there. We appreciate all the subscribers there and all the support on that channel as well. Wrapping up here at the Pasadena Convention Center for Power Morphicon 2022. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.